Welcome to Market Overtime. I'm Oliver Renick. Today, my guest is one of the most interesting people in the world of cryptocurrency. He's a former child actor turned crypto entrepreneur, co-founder of stablecoin Tether, and also co-founder of digital network advisors. Brock Pierce is with us here to talk crypto and more. And also right now running the Bitcoin Foundation. Did I get all that right, Brock?
Well, mostly. I've got lots of titles. So I've been working with digital currency since the late 90s. I started my first tech company during the Internet 1.0 bubble in 1997. We were basically the first major streaming video company back in the day. And so, yeah, chairman of the Bitcoin Foundation, started Blockchain Capital, the first venture fund in this space, one of the most successful venture firms of all time. I was chairman of Mastercoin. We invented the ICO, co-founder of Tether, the first stable coin doing $50 trillion a year. The list goes on and on and on. But yeah, DNA was the leading advisory company in the 2017-2018 super cycle, and distributed network advisors, or DNA, is back.
How much Bitcoin or crypto do you have, Brock? I've seen various reports about your net worth. Can you give me a ballpark?
Tend not to disclose the specifics of my portfolio, but I'm obviously very bullish on the market right now. We're back in a predictable super cycle with the Bitcoin halving coming up on April 20th, and the ETFs having gone live. We're in for an exciting year or two.
Just trying to figure out kind of where your biggest interest is, given that you're co-founding of the Tether stablecoin. I've seen reports that you've moved on from there, but do you still have assets in stablecoins? What is your kind of preferred way to access the crypto market right now?
Well, I mean, the invention of the stablecoin allows you to move in and out of, call it, speculative crypto assets into stable assets back and forth. You can move money from one exchange to another, and so stable coins are not really an investment class. That's just a way of going short or exiting the market and easily re-entering it. But yeah, Tether has got over $100 billion of dollars on deposit, largely in U.S. Treasuries and otherwise. But I was involved in the ideation, the original product development, and the launch of Tether, but I left the business after we built it and launched it.
Right now, we've seen market cap rise across altcoins with Bitcoin. We've accumulated about $1 trillion of total crypto market cap since the ETFs debuted. Where do you think that broad interest is coming back from? We've got new coins for like every satirical presidential or political figure, dog with hat. How did this happen, Brock? How do we get back to this very kind of euphoric stage?
Well, it's what we've seen in each of these cycles. It starts with Bitcoin, which is obviously the leading cryptocurrency. And as Bitcoin in the large cap basically sees its run, then we start to see it in the micro caps or the small caps as well. And like you said, dog with hat. We also have the meme coins, which really started with Dogecoin, as call it the major original of the memes. And I was always a bit of a skeptic of meme coins in the beginning, because they didn't offer really any differentiated utility. There was nothing special from a technology perspective. But what we've seen clearly is that culture coins, meme coins, from a marketing perspective, they work. And I guess as the technology continues to evolve, it becomes more and more of a commodity. It comes down to marketing and community. And community works. I mean, look at of the other major sort of cryptocurrencies, that's Solana is clearly standing out as a real leader relative to Ethereum. And from a technical perspective, it's not superior. It's got speed, a fair amount of centralization, but they do the best job, I think, from a marketing perspective. And that it clears, I think, is what we're seeing is a clear differentiator right now. It's less about the underlying technology and it's more about the community and the marketing.
There was a lot of talk about how the ETFs were going to usher in a new type of buyer, a new stage, a more sophisticated Wall Street suited up Bitcoin investor. But with all these altcoins gaining equal amounts of market cap since the ETFs, it kind of looks like the same old stuff. Do the rise of these new coins at all minimize? Do they detract from the ETF narrative at all?
I think they're different things. I do think the ETF is definitely bringing in investors that the market hadn't seen. Part of it being institutional access. There are many major financial institutions by charter that couldn't buy Bitcoin if it were not through an ETF-like product. It's also made Bitcoin accessible to your, call it more traditional retail investor using a traditional brokerage account. And so we have seen that, and I think that's very much true. And anytime we see a surge in Bitcoin prices, whatever the appreciation we see in Bitcoin is usually surpassed by the smaller, the mid caps and the small caps. You see greater returns in the tail ends of the market. But at the same time, when we see a downturn in the market, when Bitcoin prices drop substantially, the losses are far greater in the smaller caps. And so that's the cycle we see. When there's big returns in Bitcoin, the small caps see even greater returns. And when there's big losses in Bitcoin, the small caps get decimated.
I know as the chairman of the Bitcoin Foundation, you spend a lot of time thinking about how to integrate Bitcoin into society and how to try and fix perceived ailments of currency or financial systems using crypto. Does it frustrate you at all when you see the dog with hat stuff gaining as much momentum? When Bitcoin stays correlated to these things, does it limit the utility of the actual asset?
I've come to accept it's consensus reality. It's a shared belief system. And if people want to believe in dog with hat, I guess that is just the way it is. It's not up to me. It frustrated me for a long time, but I accept that as the nature of what the market wants, the market gets. In terms of government and the impact it has societally, I led the first formal delegation into El Salvador, bringing the companies and individuals that helped implement the Bitcoin law. And we are seeing major things. And if you watch the current election cycle, I mean, clearly Donald Trump weighed in the last week. Trump previously, his position was the U.S. dollar is the reserve currency in the world, and he was very negative on Bitcoin. But if you've seen his recent statements, he says, that was my view. There's 52 million Americans that now hold digital assets. And if Donald Trump were to become president, he does not intend to take any negative actions as it relates to Bitcoin, as we may have thought previously. And so this is a big constituent of voters. And I think that crypto is affecting elections at this point, even though look at the numbers, there are more Democrats that hold crypto than Republicans, and a lot of us are what I'd call single issue voters. We will vote based upon our candidates' views on technology because we're big believers in the future, and this is clearly here to stay, and it affects all of us.
You guys vote with your feet too. Generally, you go where the crypto as an asset class or as a financial instrument is mostly welcomed. You're based in Puerto Rico, or I know you've been described as a nomad. Do you have a residence, Brock?
I do. I'm talking to you from Puerto Rico now. I've been living here for years and started working down here about 11 years ago, which is I'm out in the middle of the Caribbean.
How has that relationship gone with the crypto community that's moved in? A lot of promises of bringing business, of bringing work and capital, but also obviously a big tax benefit as well if you choose to cash out there than here in the U.S. So what's the relationship like right now? Do you feel like it's symbiotic, or is it more a tax haven?
Well, I think it's a bit of both. Obviously, there are those of us that have benefited from the tax savings that then use those savings to invest into economic development here in Puerto Rico. I'm clearly one of the major investors here in the island, and there's a bunch of people like me. But it's I always want to see more, but I think it is symbiotic, and I think the data clearly is demonstrating that these tax benefits are creating the necessary economic development that the island needs. Though this is brick and mortar stuff, it takes time for capital to be deployed and for those investments to bear fruit and create all the economic development and jobs that the island needs.
What are some strong examples of that? Can you give me some kind of updated evidence where that crypto investment into the local community is panning out?
Well, I mean, there's a bunch of different sectors. Obviously, the meeting I just walked out of is power generation, ESG, clean energy, whether it be solar and wind. And so there's a lot of investment into energy infrastructure. Me personally, I've got some small investments in agriculture. 80 or 85% of the food here in Puerto Rico is imported. That, from a resiliency perspective, is clearly a major issue. I'm invested into the healthcare industry. We recently bought a hospital here. I'm invested into the hospitality industry, which is an area where a bunch of people invest, call it into real estate, whether it be residential, commercial. In my case, hospitality is, I think, the main area that I'm invested into, because if you look at the number of hotel keys or room keys on the island relative to the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico needs about a 400% increase. And it's become quite the vacation place. And for anybody that's on the East Coast, New York, we're nearing spring now, but it's in the United States. You don't need a passport, and the weather is fantastic. And there's direct flights consistently all day.
Like that. On the subject of energy, as you mentioned, for clean energy, ESG, obviously Bitcoin is notorious for its energy consumption. Do you feel that there has been sufficient progress on that front? Do you feel that we have evidence that it's consuming less energy? I know that I was reading an article from Times about Puerto Rico and its connection with crypto energy, and of course they get a lot of big storms too, so it seems like there's kind of some division where some people are saying, okay, we're an island nation, we're subject to global warming changes, et cetera, et cetera. These guys are using all this energy. Is there any tension there? Are you trying to resolve that?
Bitcoin mining here is not would be ill-advised. The cost of electricity it's not a viable place to mine at any scale. Your major mining in the United States is in places like Texas, New York. You need low-cost energy at scale, and this is clearly not a place for that. Though one of the things that people talk about is the power consumption that comes from Bitcoin, and is that a negative or a positive? I think it's a very positive thing, in that you need energy consumption to drive investment into new infrastructure. It also allows you to take things like stranded energy and convert that stranded energy into a commodity that can be transported. There's major energy infrastructure development. If you're a government, for example, where you do have the ability to do low-cost power generation, places like El Salvador with geothermal, call it volcanic energy, this industry is financing the necessary infrastructure to upgrade power grids in places that have the right, call it, potentials.
Let's talk some mining. As you mentioned at the top of our interview, and everybody's watching the calendar for Bitcoin's halving coming up, there is right now a pretty deep underperformance of mining stocks relative to the Bitcoin price. What are you watching for here to make sure everything goes smoothly, to find out if this is actually going to be a price positive event? Do you think that's how it works? Do you think the act of halving, reducing the number of new Bitcoin rates coming into the market, is a price positive thing?
It has been historically, and it likely will be again this time. So the halving, or the number of new Bitcoin minted, dropped in half on April 20th. Leading up to that event, price has been increasing, but it's buy on the rumor, sell on the news, right? The results. My guess is that we'll probably see the price drop at the time of the halving, and it will probably continue to increase leading up to that. And so that's going to be a typical sort of cycle. In terms of the mining stocks and those prices being down, I think that's directly attributable to the ETF. I mean, if people were investing in these mining stocks as a way to buy into Bitcoin through public market, same with MicroStrategy. Now that you can buy ETFs, it's a more efficient way to get access to Bitcoin directly. And so I think that is reducing interest in the Bitcoin mining stocks, and we may even see something similar with MicroStrategy, which were effectively alternatives to an ETF.
Yeah, that's the only catch to the theory, I guess, is that last part, which is MicroStrategy, because a lot of people use that as a proxy too. It's been going nuts, going crazy. But they don't actually have to mine. I guess what I'm wondering is, do the miners need an efficient, or rather an equivalent run in price to be able to keep the same profits once the rate of new Bitcoin gets cut in half?
Well, we're definitely going to see those that have high costs of energy or older equipment. You're going to see a bunch of that stuff come offline. So miners that are not able to compete effectively in terms of energy cost and quality of equipment will be going offline, likely following the halving. And so this is where you have to be very efficient and have the right power purchase agreements, low cost of energy to be competitive post halving, and then yes, depending upon what happens to the price of Bitcoin, which I anticipate we'll see through the rest of the cycle continue to increase. I don't disagree with analyst forecasts like what Bernstein recently produced at $150,000 Bitcoin. I think it's conceivable to see that happen, as early as this year.
Well, would you give any thought to what if it doesn't? What if for the first time in halving we go down? Like in a hypothetical, if the price doesn't move according to expectations, it seems like this is such an event that crypto proponents hold dear. It really is kind of the core of the whole thing. We own this thing because it's scarce. What if the price doesn't move as halving occurs? Does that produce a problem? No, I mean, if the price goes down, the price goes down. Crypto has gone through many of these bear and bull market cycles. Generally, it's somewhat predictable. And based upon past events, one would anticipate the price of Bitcoin going up, but anything's possible. It could go down. I'm doubtful considering the role that the ETFs are playing in terms of influx of new capital, but anything's possible. And do I think that poses a challenge for the industry? No. We go through bear markets and low price points, and it would affect the amount of venture capital and capital being deployed into infrastructure and innovation in the sector. It would usually lead to companies that operate in the space tightening their belts, lay off, less new hiring. But as an industry, we've been through worse. So I don't think it's a problem for Bitcoin. To your point earlier about miners, the kind of separation of wheat from chaff that happens around a halving event, if, as you mentioned there, if price doesn't go up enough to kind of keep the less efficient ones alive, I would think that if price goes down enough, there would be a higher rate of miner shutdowns. Is that the right logic? Yes. If prices come down, miners that can't produce at those prices do close. Infrastructure goes offline. But we've been through this again many times. So these are predictable cycles. The miners are well prepared. They know how to respond in these environments. And yes, the weak or those with old equipment or those that are paying higher energy prices are the first to go offline. I guess the one part that I'm still in the realm of the hypothetical, but the one part there that we've gone through it before, technically in the year around halving, it's always gone up a ton. So we actually I mean, I guess we don't really know what would happen if it crashed during a halving. I mean, we've only got a sample size of 3, so it's not very statistically helpful, but that's kind of what I'm trying to, ballpark here. What kind of event you think that might cause if it were to happen?
I mean, I think we've been through down cycles. We've been through low prices of Bitcoin. If that were to happen, those that have gone long are going to be disappointed. Those that have gone long with leverage are going to be very hurt. And, those that have shorted will have done well. My prediction is that we're going to see a continued bull market, but it's not a threat to the industry. We've been up cycles and down cycles, and if patterns were not to play out as people forecast, we'll be fine. Bitcoin's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Is there any price point threshold that you have? I know you didn't want to talk about how much you own, but I mean, I've heard reports you're near a billionaire. Is there any price point that's painful for you?
I've been in crypto a long time, and so I'm always happy with high prices, low prices. I've been in this business a long time, so I don't get emotional or overly excited, though I get to work. Right now we're in a super cycle, and so I'm very focused on getting projects that I work on that are outside of the crypto sphere off my plate and delegated to those to manage those businesses, so I can be more focused in this bull run to be an active market participant. So I'm excited. I'm bullish on where we're going. I'm very active in the markets right now, and excited for the next year or two as we go through, I think, another one of these super cycles.
What are the main kind of barriers to break down right now post ETF? That one was a decade in the making. It really seemed like the one that was kind of the final connection to the everyday investor. What comes next in terms of breaking down walls of accessibility?
Well, I mean, it's a huge event, but we're going to see London. The UK is adding their equivalent of an ETF now as well. I think that we're going to continue to see more government adoption, which I think is going to continue to have an impact, similar to what we've seen in El Salvador. Governments are putting Bitcoin on their balance sheets. I mean, it's becoming a meaningful part of society. So I think, what else do we have? Bitcoin layer 2 infrastructure is in place. And so Bitcoin was really digital gold, and Ethereum and some of these other cryptocurrencies were offering some of the smarter infrastructure. What we're seeing over the course of this year is Bitcoin is really turning on all of its smart sort of functionality, smart contracts, all the layer 2 infrastructure development. And so Bitcoin is becoming competitive with the Ethereum sort of networks. And that's a very exciting thing for adoption. And with that also, you're going to see the ability for Bitcoin really to be used more as money. Historically, it's been a store of value. It's been more like digital gold. But as the network infrastructure has improved, the ability to use it for microtransactions and payments, I think, will become a bigger and bigger thing.
How will you measure that? How should we measure the success of Bitcoin as a monetary tool? I know there were a lot of hopes around Lightning Network as a way to increase its efficiency and ability and use, but it kind of sacrificed some of the security standards that people expect from Bitcoin. At least that's some of the argument I've heard. How do you measure whether or not it can make that transition into more of an efficient currency?
Well, I mean, we're seeing it. There was a lot of debate within the industry. Does Bitcoin basically evolve into having greater transaction throughput and to continue to innovate? And that train's left the station. Bitcoin is making all of those moves, whether it be Lightning or other scalability solutions. There's a number of groups working aggressively to add all of this additional functionality on top of Bitcoin.
Does the volatility still limit it? I feel like that's one of the things post ETFs folks are hoping for, that maybe this will, I mean, ultimately, It's traded high beta to risk assets still. We had the dog with hat conversation still. Does that limit it? Do you need to see, is it worth maybe losing some of the upside to Bitcoin if we trade it off for stability?
Well, as market cap increases, we should see a reduction in volatility, but it's still going to be volatile. And as a medium of exchange, it's not ideal, but the scarcity and the appreciation over time makes up for call it that shortcoming, which is that you have an asset that is at least over an extended period of time has shown tremendous increase in value. And so, the downside of that is that it's a volatile instrument. And ideally, you don't want to be using it when Bitcoin was at 14,000 or 1,400. And the main reason we don't see it used for payments is most people, as we say, like to hodl their Bitcoin.
Preferred to hodl it when it's going up, no doubt. Would you rather have Bitcoin hit 150K, keep printing higher, or have it stay at the level it's at forever, Brock?
I'd like to see 150K.
Wouldn't it be a better useful tool as a monetary instrument if it stayed at the same level, though?
If that's the goal, and that's one of its use cases. The reason why people have been investing and believe in Bitcoin is its scarcity, right? The concept of hard money. And the fact that there's only 21 million Bitcoin, and as more and more people recognize its potential and become hodlers, we're going to see $1 million plus Bitcoin at some point, or zero, right? It's a binary outcome. It's either going to surpass $1 million one day, or it will be replaced for some reason by something else, and we see, call it a zero price Bitcoin. But I don't think we're going to see $1 million Bitcoin in this super cycle.
Okay, I know you don't think we're going to see a zero one either, but that does give some insight into the way you view it. You view it as basically a binary outcome then. So what would give you a heads up if it's not going to go to that million? I mean, like if you feel like it's going to be if you feel like it's a binary event and it doesn't look like it'll go to $1 million, then at what point do you say, I'll jump ship and, keep the cash that I got?
Well, call it the zero outcome is something call it quantum computing. The idea that something perhaps replaces Bitcoin and its same functionality. That's, what, call it, people investing in Ethereum believe, a smarter network, but Bitcoin's network is going to be smart at this point. So I think the threat of being replaced by a smarter network is being mitigated by the Bitcoin community and the changes there, the additions and the innovation that's coming into the network. So I think the likelihood of Bitcoin being replaced by something else is likely being reduced by the incredible innovation and investment being made into the overall Bitcoin ecosystem right now. Okay.
Hey, said we come back to the politics just real quick. Brock, as you mentioned, some of the language from former President Trump seems to have softened up a little bit on crypto. Is there a preferred crypto candidate right now?
Well, I think that Gary Gensler, the head of the SEC, is clearly not well liked by the crypto community, even though the ETFs are live. I think if Biden wanted to win a big block of digital asset voters, I think firing Gary Gensler would be the way to do it. Actually, probably a good strategy to pick up a lot of votes. Trump is obviously come out now positively, having been spoken negatively about Bitcoin in the past. And then the independent candidate, RFK Jr. is also spoken very positively about crypto. So Trump is speaking positively, Kennedy is speaking positively, and Biden hasn't weighed in negatively. And if he wants to win a lot of votes, I think firing Gary Gensler would be the path to that.
All right. Brock Pierce also speaking positively, but not in the running this year. Correct?
I am fortunately not running for office right now.
All right. Brock, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us on Market Overtime. Don't forget to download the Schwab Network app on the Apple App Store and tune in 24/7 at schwabnetwork.com.